Today, we are absolutely diving into the ancient, totally logic defying survival of one of the most mysterious structures on the planet, the Kedarnath Temple.
Let's rewind to June 2013. A catastrophic flood just absolutely wiped out thousands of buildings, bridges, and roads across the Himalayas. Total devastation. Yet there's this one ancient temple sitting right in the crosshairs of all this destruction, and it remained virtually untouched. How is that physically possible? Today, we're going to break down the science, the history, and the profound mysteries surrounding this incredible site.
Okay, let's dive into this first section, the 2013 disaster in Bhimshila.
To really wrap our heads around what this temple, sitting at over 3,500 meters high, actually survived, we've got to look at the terrifying sequence of events from that fateful summer. It all started with a sudden, massive cloudburst. Within hours, the Mandakini and Saraswati rivers swelled up, rising at a terrifying rate of 6 feet per second. But then, the absolute worst-case scenario hit. The Chorabari Glacial Lake, which was sitting right behind the temple, literally burst. Picture a 1.5-kilometer-wide lake holding millions of tons of water, ice, and debris just barreling directly toward the Kedarnath Temple. Annihilation seemed absolutely certain. But then, the final, craziest step on our timeline happened.
A massive boulder rolled right down with those floodwaters, and we're talking about a 30-ton, 20-foot-tall, absolute behemoth of a rock. Miraculously, this colossal boulder lodged itself exactly 10 meters behind the temple. Because of where it landed, it forced the roaring, destructive waters to basically split and flow right around the sides of the structure. The locals reverently named this rock Bhimshila, and it acted as a physical shield, directly saving the temple and the lives of over 500 people who were taking shelter inside. Honestly, it's wild.
So, that brings us to the secrets of ancient engineering. You've got to wonder, how on earth could an ancient structure withstand the sheer kinetic impact of millions of tons of rushing water and debris just glancing off its sides? What is this place actually made of? Well, it all comes down to its incredible origins. On one hand, the Archaeological Survey of India places the temple's construction between the 8th and 10th centuries. They base this on carbon dating of the massive stone walls, which means it's roughly 1,200 to 1,500 years old. But on the flip side, deeply held mythological texts assert that the temple dates all the way back to the Mahabharata era, making it over 5,000 years old. Regardless of which timeline you lean toward, getting these massive stones up to a 12,000-foot altitude without any modern machinery, that is a staggeringly impressive architectural feat.
Let's transition over to the Pandavas and Lord Shiva.
To really understand the cultural heartbeat of this structure, we have to look at the legends of its founding. According to ancient texts, right after the devastating Mahabharata war, the Pandava brothers were totally overwhelmed with the guilt of killing their own kin. Seeking to absolve their sins, they journeyed way up into the high Himalayas, searching for Lord Shiva to beg for his forgiveness. Now, the sources recount that Lord Shiva, who didn't want to forgive them too easily, disguised himself as a bull and hid among a herd. When the mighty Pandava brother, Bhima, finally recognized him and tried to catch him, the bull began sinking right into the ground. Bhima managed to grab only the hump. The legend states that the bull's body parts scattered across the Himalayas, creating 5 sacred sites, known as the Panch Kedar. So you have the hump at Kedarnath, the arms at Tungnath, the face at Rudranath, the navel at Madhyameshwar, and the hair at Kalpeshwar.
Let's move to and see how this builds into our next part, 4 centuries under the ice.
You see, the 2013 flood wasn't actually the first time Kedarnath faced the extreme wrath of nature. There's this other jaw-dropping historical survival event, and this one is verified by the Wadia Institute of Himalayan Geology. During a period known as the Little Ice Age, this is roughly between 1300 and 1800 AD, the Kedarnath Temple wasn't just, snowed in. It was completely swallowed by a glacier. For a staggering 400 years, this temple was buried under crushing, moving ice filled with rocks and debris. When the ice finally retreated centuries later, scientists fully expected to find absolute ruins. But instead, the temple emerged essentially without a single scratch. No way, right?
So how did it survive being ground under a glacier for 4 centuries? The answer lies in the interlocking technique. Get this, the ancient builders didn't use a single drop of cement or mortar. Instead, they took massive 6 to 8 ton brownstones, which were brought from miles away, and precisely cut them so they'd perfectly lock into one another. It's kind of like a giant, super heavy puzzle. This genius, mortar-free engineering allowed the walls to distribute the immense weight and pressure of the 400-year glacial freeze, and even later the seismic shocks of the 2013 floods. It's the reason the temple stands completely unbroken today.
Now, let's explore the 6-month burning lamp.
Because of the extreme altitude up there, winter temperatures easily plunge to -20 degrees Celsius. It becomes completely uninhabitable, which forces the temple to close entirely for 6 months out of every single year. But what happens during those 6 months of isolation has sparked one of its greatest modern mysteries. There's a famous, incredibly dramatic legend about a devoted sadhu or holy man who desperately wanted to see what happens when the temple doors are locked. So, according to the story, he actually hid inside before the winter closure, and he only had about 4 days' worth of fruit with him. Pretty soon, the food ran out, the freezing cold set in, and he cried out, "Hey Prabhu, kamin ab yahain mar jaunga," which translates to, "Lord, will I die here?" The story goes that he fell asleep praying, and when he woke up, he found fresh fruit all around him. He soon realized that the temple doors were being opened from the outside. He hadn't just slept for a night. He had slept for 6 entire months, completely protected.
Now, while that story is a legend, there is a very real documented phenomenon that occurs during this 6-month closure. Before leaving for the winter, the priests light an akhand jyoti, an eternal flame. The doors are locked tight. There's absolutely no human intervention. No one is going in to refill the oil. Under massive snowdrifts, oxygen levels inside the temple plunge, and yet year after year, when the doors are reopened in the spring, the lamp is found still burning brightly. For devotees, this is absolute proof that celestial beings maintain the temple during the winter. For science, though, it remains a baffling, totally unsolved anomaly of combustion every time those doors swing open.
And this brilliantly illustrates our final point, the 79-degree spiritual alignment.
If we zoom out and look at the exact geographical placement on the globe, we stumble upon another astonishing discovery. If you map out some of the most significant Shiva temples across the Indian subcontinent, starting from Kedarnath all the way in the freezing north down to Rameswaram in the tropical south, a crazy pattern emerges. They are separated by thousands of kilometers, traversing mountains, plains, and dense forests. Yet they all sit almost perfectly on the 79 degrees east longitude line. They form this massive, straight line right down the length of India. How did ancient builders, with absolutely no GPS, no satellites, or modern mapping tools, perfectly align these massive stone structures on the exact same longitudinal axis?
Which leaves us with one ultimate question to ponder. Is this 79-degree alignment just a mere geographical coincidence? Or is it proof of ancient, advanced architectural energy lines, what some folks might call ley lines, mapped out by ancient sages? From massive mortar-free interlocking stones that survived 400 years completely buried under a glacier to a perfectly timed 30-ton boulder that shielded it from a catastrophic flood, Kedarnath sits right on the razor's edge where myth, physics, and sheer human endurance collide. Whether you view it as a miracle of divine intervention or an absolute masterclass in ancient engineering, it just demands our awe. Keep questioning, keep learning, and thank you so much for joining me on this explainer.